slightly different video for you this week. I've had my arm twisted. I went to my irregular monthly flower arranging club in town this week, and both the chairman, the friend I go with, and the treasurer twisted my arm and persuaded me to enter some exhibits into the flower arranging classes at our local horticultural show. So we have a garden club in town and a flower arranging club in town, and sometimes the membership crosses over. It may well be that you are a confident and competent competition enterer, or whether, like me, it's been years since you've done it, or perhaps you are a novice. Well, come with me and I'll share my competition experience with you. Hello there, I'm Julie from Julie Davis Flower Workshops and Flower Start, the online flower arranging classes. So I was messaging my friend from Flower Club telling her how much I had just spent on spring flowers, and it was reminding me that perhaps that's the reason why I don't enter competitions anymore. It is quite time consuming in terms of planning, the thinking and the actual making of the arrangements, but also it's quite costly too. And at that point she said to me, "That's how I only enter one class, Julie." And I have entered all 4 classes. There is a 5th class, but that's for novices, and many, many years ago I have won prizes at this particular show, so I'm no longer eligible for the novice class. I can remember the first time I entered a flower arranging competition, and the reason I decided to enter my first flower arranging competition all those years ago was because I'd popped into town one Saturday morning, I'd seen the sign for the show, I'd had a look around, and I thought, actually, I think I can do as well as those, or perhaps even better. And I've been quite lucky because I've been able to enter just by contacting the treasurer, who's a lady from the Flower Club, and she's told me that all I need to do is turn up tonight, Friday night, and pay my money on the door, and then I can leave my exhibits in place. So that's something you will need to check if you are thinking of entering a flower arranging competition. Now, for instance, we have a county show in the county of Kent every summer, and the schedule for that show has been published, I think, at the beginning of March. The show actually takes place in July, and you have to have applied, made your entry by May time, I think. So if you are going to a larger show, you've probably got a longer run-in time to consider. But if you are brand new to competing, I would suggest that you either enter the competition your own flower club might hold, or see what local horticultural or garden societies are near you. They're much more local, so easier to get to and slightly less intimidating. What you need to do is look very carefully at your schedule, because it will tell you the description of the title of the class and any other information. The thing you really need to look at is how much table space you've got. So I know for all the classes I'm entering, I've got 61 centimetres, which is 2 feet. So the 4 classes I'm entering is a general one called Springtime, 61 centimetres, and then Welcome Spring, and that is a door wreath, and it says specifically must be capable of being hung on a door. The next category is an Easter basket, and then the last one is Reflections. So what I do is I get myself a notebook, and I've decided to enter 4 classes. Remind me not to do this again. It is way too much brain power going on, and it is time consuming, as I said before, and quite costly because I don't have a spring flowering garden, so I've had to buy all my flowers, and the price does mount up. By way of preparation, what I'm doing is I'm looking at the titles and just seeing what I can think to do, and sometimes I just take it really literally. So I know Easter basket, I need to find myself a basket. So the way of corralling my thoughts is I take a notebook, and I have 4 different pages in the notebook. So I make a note of the title, the amount of space I've got, that's 61 centimetres, and then I do the roughest of sketches based on the containers I've already got. Now, if you are a sort of semi-professional competition person, you've probably got a whole raft of containers you can use, and because you will have had a much longer run-in time than me, you will have searched for the perfect container rather than me. Rather than being like me when I've just sort of found the best that I've got by shopping my home. I then start to think about the shape that I'm going to make, jot a few notes down about what flowers and greenery I'll need, and then actually I do have a 5th page at the end when I write myself a shopping list. And that was what I did after I finished teaching my class in Canterbury this week. I had a pop to Marks and Spencer's and then to a local garden centre, and I've bought myself some fresh cut spring flowers and then also some potted bulbs too. Now, I don't normally mock up what I'm actually going to create for the competition entry, but if you're doing a much bigger show, you will be mocking up, practicing, and perhaps taking weeks and weeks to perfect your look. But as I said, I have just had Flower Club this week, and our title we were working to was just an open title of Easter. So I have made an Easter arrangement with the classic yellow and purple of the iris and daffodil in a pin holder in a little blue dish. So I am going to take this apart, recreate it, and obviously get rid of the dead flowers. But that is my inspiration for the first exhibit. And I've started work on my 2nd exhibit, and this title is called Welcome Spring and a Door Wreath. So what I've got here is quite a large door wreath frame. Normally when I'm making a door wreath I work with a 30cm frame, but because the table space I've been allowed is 61 centimetres, I was slightly worried that my wreath was going to be too small in the space, so I've upgraded, which meant a trip up to the loft to go through my Christmas supplies. So I wanted to keep this quite lightweight, and I've covered the wreath with sisal. Now, sisal was really popular in flower arranging circles a few years ago. The reason I've gone for sisal is that I went to the garden centre and asked whether they had any moss, and they said they didn't have any in stock and they were waiting delivery. So it was a case of needs must really. What else could I find to help create the base of my door wreath? And you can see there that I am creating not a complete circle. I've got heavier materials at the bottom. This is silver birch, and it comes up in 2 sweeps either side, getting thinner as you get to the top. So how am I going to decorate this for springtime? That's where my spring potted bulbs come in. I have bought, I think it was 3 pots of grape hyacinth and a set of 4 of the Tate a Tate daffodils, which sadly haven't come into flower yet. These ones are a bit too far advanced, and these ones haven't got any flower in them. So I'm conscious of the fact that if I had made the decision earlier to enter the show, I could have been more selective in what I had bought, and I could have encouraged my daffodils to open on my sunny south-facing kitchen windowsill if only I'd bought them a couple of weeks ago. And what you can see here, I have taken them out of the soil. So normally when you buy potted bulbs, the first thing you want to do is give them a good old water when you get home. The first thing I did was shake all the dry compost off and then put my bulbs in a bowl of washing up water, and then I've spent most of yesterday afternoon scraping away at the bulbs using an old toothbrush. And I don't really know how to effectively clean the soil off my bulbs. What I've envisaged is I'm going to pin these bulbs onto my door wreath, and I thought I would like to have the little bit of root showing. If I can't get the roots clean though, so I can see myself doing another little rubbing and scrubbing with my toothbrush, I may well take all the roots off and just have the bulbs by themselves. And then I'll need to work out how I'm going to pin them on my wreath for decorative effect. I have a slight concern at the moment, and that's that my wreath is too lightweight in construction. If I had bound the frame with moss, it would have been more substantial and would have borne the weight of having all those bulbs pinned in place. Because I've only got this lightweight raffia and twig base, I'm going to have to be really careful about getting my balance right. The next exhibit is an Easter basket. So I don't particularly like baskets. Part of the reason is they're so difficult to store, but I just feel that they're so old-fashioned. So what I found is a basket that's got a bit more of a modern look to it. And I can remember that this was a birthday gift from a friend many years ago. It's sort of got that shabby chic look to it. Looks a little bit like a garden trug, and that's the vibe that I'm going to follow for my Easter basket, as if I just picked flowers from my bountiful spring garden. And I've decided also I'm going to go foam free, probably making it slightly harder for myself at the same time. So what I've done is to find myself a dish that fits inside my basket. I'm then going to have my scrunched up chicken wire in there, and then with string I'm going to tie the chicken wire in place using the handles on this container, and then tie that inside my basket, and that will keep everything really secure. Something a bit like that. Now the problem here is because the basket is wide, you can see through to the container. So when I finish the arrangement, I'm going to pack something into the inside edge of the basket, that little gap there. And if I had moss, I would have packed with moss. If I had straw, I might have used straw. I could use my sisal, but I don't like using the materials repeatedly through each of the exhibits. And one thing I'm thinking of at the moment is to perhaps shred up some newspaper. Actually, now I think about it, I think I've got a length of hessian fabric somewhere, but I may well have to spend ages looking for it. I wonder where I've put that. But I think that might be a better option. Line the basket with hessian, then put the container in, and then have a very natural flowing arrangement. And as the title is an Easter basket, I need to think, how Eastery do I want to make it? I'm definitely not going to have Easter bunnies lining up next to it, but I could rely on my selection of spring flowers. I have also got some duck eggs which I've used for crafting projects over the years. I'm wondering about nestling a couple of those duck eggs into the basket. So we'll have to wait and see whether I pull that off or not. I'm now at the stage when I'm thinking about packing my bags and deciding how I'm going to stage my exhibits. So I'm going to put this arrangement on a little cork tray that I bought from a charity shop last summer. So I'm putting the dead bits of my flower arrangement from Flower Club into my composting bin and just seeing what I can salvage. So I think I can get away with reusing my irises, but all my daffodils have gone over. When I read the schedule for the springtime door wreath, I'd read it as if the door wreath had to be capable of being hung up, and therefore it was going to be displayed flat on the table. So to give that indication of it being able to hang up, I was going to set it onto this circular tray and have it propped up onto the little copper dish. So I had this series of interlocking circles. As it happened, I didn't need the tray or the copper bowl because there were little hooks set up on one of the display areas, so the dories actually had to be physically hung. As I start to gather my things together, I'm in a tiny bit of a quandary. I've part made my spring door wreath, but everything else I'm going to have to make when I arrive at the show with the preparation on the night before. So the show was the doors were open from 7 till 10 the night before, or you could set up between 8 and 10 the morning of the competition. And because I'm doing foam free with everything, it's just going to be quite difficult to transport these open containers with water. So I'm just doing as much prep as I can ahead of time, firmly tying my chicken wire in place. And then I don't use shredded newspaper to line my basket. I actually found some old packing tissue paper, which was much more discreet and was able to scrunch up and tuck down inside that open weave basket. These are the flowers that I bought from Marks and Spencer's. I don't normally shop for my flowers at M&S, but because I was teaching in Canterbury last Wednesday morning, I had a little bit of time before class, so I thought I would just have a look and see what was available. So I've actually kept these flowers dry. I didn't put them in water because I didn't want my tulips and my daffodils to fully open. So what I'm doing here is taking off the elastic bands and recutting the stems and putting them to one side so they can be in a bucket of water so that they're in tip-top condition. It seems that I didn't actually film the clip when I showed you what I was going to do for the reflections class, but this is it. Reflections, I have chosen blue hyacinths and the blue grape hyacinths. I've then got my two Chippendale, or in the style of Chippendale vases, my celery vase and the smaller vase, and I'm going to put the larger hyacinths in the bigger celery vase, the smaller grape hyacinths in the smaller Chippendale vase, and that is what's going to be my reflection. The large arrangement nestled up with the smaller arrangement, and then to corral that together I've got them on my reflective silver tray. So all these items were from the charity shop. £3.50 for the celery vase, I think it was £1 or £2 for the smaller Chippendale glass vase, and I think I paid £4 for the silver tray. Now that I've got all my staging planned out and I've got my fresh flowers in water, it's time to pack my flower arranging kit. So I've got my Florist scissors, my secateurs for my woody stems, I've got my fabric scissors for some ribbon I'm thinking of using, I've got some small pin holders to go in the bottom of my Chippendale glass vases in case I need it. Slightly concerned because the vase is quite small that my flowers are going to want to topple out. I've got a cloth to mop up spills, I've got a dustpan and brush, I've got a little bit of pot tape, and lo and behold, I'm going to pack my paracetamol as well and a tape measure just to confirm my sizes. So I was talking with my friend who goes to Flower Club and is also exhibiting in this competition, and we were having a little bit of a giggle because I think we've both got the same vintage book which explains how when you go to competitions you might need to suck on a mint to calm your nerves. In the end, I spent about an hour and a half sorting out my flowers ready for the competition. So when I'd arrived, the hall was already set up by the show committee. You go and report into the show secretary, she takes your name, you pay your entry fee, you get given your entry cards, and the cards have got a number on them and your name, so you can see the little numbers dotted around the room. So you find out where the competition piece is, your space is for the class that you've entered, you set up your competition piece, and then you turn your card over so that the judge doesn't know whose entry is whose. You'll notice lots of gaps as I pan around the room, and this is because the other half of the competitors will be arranging their flowers and exhibits tomorrow. So can you spot my arrangements? Class 36, springtime, that was mine. And then we move on to the Easter baskets. Mine's coming up with my pink clippers and my decoupage egg. A closer look at my springtime exhibit with my pin holder. Close up again of my Easter basket. See how my tulips are starting to open out already in the warmth of the room. And now I really like this exhibit of mine, if I say so myself. We'll have to see what the judge thinks about this simplicity of my design, and I'm rather proud of my door wreath too. Judging takes place behind closed doors, and the show opened a little after 12 noon. You can see here that the show benches have filled up. And which ones do you think have been placed? I always find it really interesting reading the judges' comments. There's always something to learn for next time. Watch on to the end of the video and I will showcase my 4 exhibits and share the judges' comments with you. There are 2 comments that I notice quite regularly in local flower arranging competitions, and the first is that the mechanics haven't been covered up sufficiently well. Can you see the tape sitting down low in that basket? And the second one is choosing carefully your accessories. So in this exhibit, the Easter bunnies were considered to be too dominant. And of course, this is the horticultural show. Look here, the perfectly clocked daffodil. Congratulations, a very well presented design with pristine plant materials. Well done. Second place. What a delightful Easter basket. Well done. Your selection of flowers works very well, and I love your accessories which matched perfectly, although you didn't need to include the wooden base. Congratulations on your very on-trend door hanging, all very well presented. Well done. First place. A very well presented exhibit with lovely plant material. It's a pity your flowers are all leaning forward, which puts it all out of balance. Third place. Now here's a question for you. Do you agree with the judge? Of all the comments I received, this is the exhibit I didn't feel was quite properly understood. I decided to interpret the show title of Reflections by mirroring a larger arrangement with a smaller one just tucked behind, and I'd purposely put my flowers at an angle. Perhaps in hindsight I should have bundled them together and made that slanted placement look more purposeful. If you've got a competition coming up, let me know in the comments, and if I can be in any help with hints and tips on how to control your nerves and how best to display your arrangement at the show bench, let me know in the comments. That's all from me for now, and I'll see you again next time.